She's incredible. She's now. She's the future. Anyway, this is a song that we wrote a year ago, and I think it's pretty great. So I'm gonna play it the way we wrote it, and yeah, I'm gonna get the fuck out of here. Oh, yeah, and Jeff, fuck you and fuck your authenticity.
Broken heart, burn it all down.
So we came out to Los Angeles to do a few things. We've got a lot of details that are starting to pile up. The main one is scouting the Troubadour, our main location for the film. So that's one thing. And then the second is Bradley Jackson, who wrote the script with me, is actually here in Los Angeles, as well as a guy named Ben Fuqua, who's our line producer. So Henry and I came out from Texas to come here to sit down with Ben and Bradley and kind of go through more or less a State of the Union, things that are outstanding and what we need to try and accomplish over the next 2 weeks before production starts, because everything's like very hypothetical at some point, and then it makes a very specific turn where it's like, okay, we've got a mountain of things to accomplish in a relatively short amount of time. So today we're getting together to kind of talk about what we need to do next. The world doesn't shut down when you say, I want to make a personal project of this scale and size. I still was in the midst of flying here and there, back and forth, trying to continue my day job, which was, commercial DP. And so I was on all kinds of other projects in the midst of pre-production for this film, and knew that Henry and Ben would be more than capable of handling these logistics and details.
I think we're gonna be good in that regard.
But hearing your schedule, every part of me was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, well, here's what I'll say is the good thing about like being super busy with that kind of stuff is that other than one day of shooting for the most part, everything else is a whole day on the airplane, a whole day.
Which is good.
It's like when I go to New York, there's enough transition time that not having 2 kids at home and like running around normal life, I'll actually have more like mental space by traveling that much than if I was just like sitting at home waiting for it to happen. So I feel relatively confident in terms of the amount of stuff to do.
Yeah.
I mean, it's busy, but
It's like we have a lot to get done, but I think we're set up to do it.
Yeah.
You brought up the idea of like shooting outside, essentially Sunday night.
basically the opening sequence of the film takes place outside of the Troubadour, and then she turns around and walks in. Unfortunately, the scene with David, unless we want to rewrite it, which we can, takes place with like the show actively, like people are going inside.
Yeah, you could steal that.
Which we could probably, like, I don't know if that's something that we would want, like when we have extras, if we want to actually stage that. That seems like more work than necessary, that we don't need to do on the 29th or 30th, if we could get it done on Sunday.
And that could be like a good little warm up. Also, just since you're not going to be at the walkthrough tomorrow, what are the things that you've thought about just with the venue that we should like be thoughtful of?
And as far as me, it's like, so you walk into the Troubadour, there's a big room, and then there's a little bitty bar and a restroom, and there's 2 doors. You can walk straight in and go into the big area. There's a bar in the back, which it's just open, so you have a lot of like foreground to use for like sexy cinematography. You could like whatever you sorry sexy that was
this episode is going to be called sexy
cinematographers.
The Ryan Booth short film.
How many people do we need to show up at the Troubadour to make it feel nice and full in there?
That might be a question we can even ask them tomorrow.
Because the cap is 500.
Yeah.
Which we don't want 500 people there. That'd be a nightmare. Do we want to try and find another band with a little bit of pull that could like do something like that? Or do we want to like hodgepodge some musicians together, have David tweet out that he's going to be doing this thing, and then we like collectively try and we could probably get 100 people to show up like just pretty easily.
Yeah.
But is 100 people in that room going to be like, whoa, there's nobody here?
We're going to get insurance.
We already have insurance, man.
Okay, cool.
I bought some.
Nice. get you kids?
There's
From
a-
the insurance store.
I would.
I went to the insurance store and I got some.
The thrift store insurance, you get vintage insurance?
I would.
I also got up insurance, which is if we screw everything up, we actually get wealthy in that scenario.
Dude,
Cool.
we could. Yeah, let's do this.
Sorry, Story and Heart.
So Bradley, Ben Fuqua, Henry, and myself were kind of in the same place at the same time for the first time. And what naturally starts to happen is like, okay, cool, like how are we actually going to do this? For instance, there's like almost no parking in that part of town. So how are we gonna get the trucks in and how are we gonna load in and load out? And if we're asking all these extras to show up, where are they gonna go and where is all of our crew people gonna park? And just the kind of reality, nuts and bolts nature of like how are we actually gonna be able to pull this thing off quickly becomes apparent that there's a lot of logistical details to work out. You know, they say filmmaking is a team sport, and that feels all nice and pretty until you've got to actually like involve a bunch of other people in helping execute ideas that I may not be involved in. And the key is having good people around you that you trust will kind of get it done. And these guys managed to prep a film that should have taken 6 or 8 weeks to prep. You know, we made it happen in just about half that time. I'm gonna let Ben DP and I'll step in as needed, basically. Yep. And so I hate it more than anything when I'm DPing and they give me crew. Like I just don't, you know.
Sure.
But
so,
to give him like an AC and a...
No, like giving him an AC is the one that you don't...
You want to have that.
That is...
Somebody needs to know you.
My bad, sorry guys.
No, I mean like, like the AC is the right-hand man like person, so like
So we're thinking
picking your
first
AC...
and a second AC, and then we'll do...
I don't think he gets a second. I think it's...
Just one first?
I think it's...
Swing.
Is he gonna operate?
DP, yeah, and then I'll step in and operate like...
Oh, you're gonna operate?
Oh, for sure. Not the whole thing, but I would imagine I will operate the entire end sequence on the stage.
Yeah.
But what he is asking about is if we would have enough to bring out a Steadicam op.
Okay.
Like a friend rate on a Steadicam op, which I think is probably possible. I think 2 and 2 is probably too much.
Yeah.
I think we can do a gaffer and a key grip,
Yep.
a DP and a first AC, and then if we can find a Steadicam op,
Cool.
then great. But that's about it. And then they're gonna have to we'll have to use PAs for all the rest of it. But
okay, so we'll just tell him that. So he gets a 4-man crew.
the less our crew costs, the more toys you get.
Right.
Yeah.
I've reached out to a production designer, but in terms of like wardrobe, production design, etc., do you guys know people here that we could lean on?
Yeah.
We're paying a lot for this venue, so like we should make sure that we're filling it with things that make it feel like a real show.
Well, I mean, I'll reverse that, which is we're paying a lot for this venue because it is...
It's rock and roll.
It is ready to go.
Yeah.
It's like 75, 80% there. I think what we need to bring in is a handful of elements in the green room to make sure that
Yeah, we
feels...
need dressing in there, set deck for that for sure.
Yep.
And then sound, is there anything tricky on sound?
I think we just capture room audio. David and Jesse have lavs, obviously. And then I'll work with Chad to figure out if we need to just add in sounds later from the music standpoint.
There already be mics on the stage. You know, it's not gonna look weird if you needed to put like condensers up or whatever
Right.
the mics they would like on the drum kit.
Exactly.
To capture ambience.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think
So it's
as long as we get like decent enough ambience, that's all that the sound check and the sound check sequence and the final sequence of Jesse playing with the big band is like, it's very much in the background. It's not about them, like, it's not like a...
No.
We can cheat stuff.
And
Yeah.
everything else that'll
The
be-
only one that's like, that we actually need, like, captured well in real time is David and Jesse's acoustic song at the end of the film.
Cool.
That one, like, we're not gonna overdub that. I want it live, like in the room.
Yeah.
In all seriousness, like, I think as wind up and go as it can be, I think that's why I want David to be the lead, is like, put him in a situation in which he exists in a very real and normal way, and then we just bounce other characters off of him, and I think that like it will and we're in a venue that means something to him personally. It means something like there's a vibe when you're in the venue.
Yep.
Like we're in a real space with a real musician, and then we're just like bouncing people off.
Ever since I worked with him, I was like, this guy is talented enough to be a professional actor.
Yeah.
He just happens to be an amazing musician.
Right.
And so I've always wanted to build something around him.
Yeah.
And in reading the newest draft that you had, I feel like you did a really smart pivot. Like, pivot, I feel like is like, I live with my brother who's in,
Tech guy.
And so like the term pivot is like, okay, this is what we thought the company was going to be. This is what we thought the script was going to be. We now know that we have this lead actor who we don't know. There's a lot of variables out there that we don't know.
Yeah.
We have this one constant being David Ramirez. Why not take the core structure of the film and then kind of slowly pivot it to where it's like, the beginning you think the movie's about her.
Yep.
And in a way it still is about her, but by the end it's like become about both of them.
Right.
But about his acceptance of, which I think was really smart, what it got me really excited
That's
about
same.
the most recent draft.
Same. I think you did a great job.
When he's walking out, it's like The Graduate, where he had his glorious moment and he instantly regrets it. Not regrets it to the point that he shouldn't have done it, but like...
He hears the crowd go nuts.
Totally. And
he's
she
like,
moves on immediately.
There's something that would be really beautiful about him like smiling and then being like...
Exactly. Like I think that the reason that I have him doing it so publicly is that he knows that like if he doesn't seize on the moment to burn his own bridge down, he will crawl back across it later that night.
Yeah, he like almost has to do it for himself.
He has to do it for himself so that like he can make a clean break right then. Otherwise, it's going to be like an entangled mess that like never unwinds.
Is David? I mean, when's he gonna get a script so that he could just sort of start running lines?
I'll send him the latest version.
2011.
Yep. I basically was like, if you told someone to go f themselves, like, how would you do it?
Yeah.
Like, have you ever like had the fantasy of like getting up there and like telling somebody off? And he was like, oh yeah. And I was like, all right, let me know. Like, I want you to tell me how you would do that.
He should, by all intents and purposes, be like a script consultant for us because he has lived this more than any of us.
Absolutely.
I mean, you've probably lived it the second most, but he's actually like, it's his blood on the stage.
Is there anything else that we're not bringing up that we haven't talked about? Are you looking at me like
I mean, there's a lot.
I should?
By the way, there's a million things that we haven't thought of.
Yeah.
Because as we know, we're trying to make a pretty ambitious short film
In 2 weeks.
In 2 weeks with a director who's never in town and are you line producing?
Yeah.
With a line producer who's never in town. A producer who's, I mean, just look at him. He's a train wreck. And
a writer who just read the script.
Yeah.
What could go wrong?
We are a motley crew.
Ryan has had the idea for this short for a long time, and then we started kind of actively thinking about how we could make it this year. And this is really our first chance to kind of sit down. And as a producer, one of the things you're thinking about is just like the dynamic of the team and wanting people to work really well together. And the whole reason we're out here in LA is there's a ton of great technology today, but there's nothing that beats just sitting around the table with everyone that you're working with.
All four of us live in different cities, so we've been doing a ton of stuff over the phone and over email, but just sitting and hashing stuff out, you can just get a ton more done in a pretty short amount of time. So I think the main things we've got are assignments, kind of things that we need to be working on, things that we need to be thinking about. Tomorrow we're going to scout the Troubadour and walking through there with our AD and looking at, okay, this scene can be here and we can do this first and what order we'll shoot everything in. My big takeaway of kind of what I need to be working on is just continuing to refine the script. It's really helpful to start splitting up, knowing this is something that Henry's thinking about and I don't need to worry about it because I need to be thinking about this.
All right. Well, it's time to connect.